Hi, welcome back in Game Live. Game Day here on the grid. Scott and Joe getting set for second half. Auburn, Alabama, number 1 versus number 2 for the first time in 3 seasons. First time ever where the two teams are from the SEC, which is traditionally a football conference, but it's really picked up college basketball-wise the last couple of seasons, including this year. So Auburn leading at 42-33, up by 9, laying 4.5. We talked about that. Over-under is at 166.5. It ticked up just a little bit as they closed out the first half at 165.5. So people betting the over. That's a 91-point second half. 92 points at this point, second half. So it's going to take some doing. Dookie Pukey's pulling away from Stanford, 73-48. Midway through the second half, 11.5 minutes left to go there. Laying now 27.5, over under 162.5. We're getting some blowouts here, which is causing some teams that are traditionally under teams to go over, Joe. And in Iowa State, in a good one against Cincinnati, leading 52-48, 12 minutes left to go there. Iowa State laying 8.5, which I'm surprised the number's that high still. And over-under is 145.5. That's come down a little bit from its peak, which was in the 150s earlier today.
Yeah, I'm just checking some of those threes out there, Scott. We have seen Cooper Flagg hit 2 threes of 5 attempts, so that one has cashed nicely. And Proctor actually has hit his threes as well. He's hit 4 of 7, so we needed Proctor for 3+ threes and Cooper Flagg. Cooper Cup does not play basketball. Cooper Flagg out there for 2+ threes. So hopefully you guys tailed on that one. I didn't love the spread or the total in this game because I was a little concerned with how Duke would play this out after they got up. But great to see those threes come raining in for these teams and or for these players and for both of them to cash on those props. So hopefully some of you guys were able to tail on that because we were getting great plus money with both of them to be able to hit those threes today. So I love looking at these player props in college basketball, Scott. I feel like we get so much more out of these players than we would an NBA player. And no knock against NBA players, but I feel like at the college level, they dig just a little bit harder.
Yeah, and you get some cheap fouls, too, in the end where you don't get that fouling in the NBA. So if you have a card, and he's going to be carrying the ball, you get yourself an extra 2, 3, 4, sometimes even more points just with that goofy fouling in the end. So a couple of other games here, Joe, that we touched on earlier. Cal leading Georgia Tech 61-59, close game. 9.5 minutes left to go there. That's basically pick 'em. Cal laying 1.5 points. USC was up double digits before. This was one of my overtime games in my overtime parlay along with Alabama, leading now only by 5, 49-44. I thought Minnesota would kind of hang around in this game. So they're getting 7.5, which is pretty much what the line was to start the game. Over under 138.5. Did like the over in the game. We got 93 points with 10.5, almost 11 minutes left, actually. So I still like Minnesota. I just think this has got one of those classic USC maybe wins, maybe wins by 5 or 6, but Minnesota just kind of hangs around and gets the old backdoor cover. So I'm okay with the score.
Yeah, it's a lot of points to grab them, plus the 6.5 right now. So I like Minnesota there. And I still think Georgia Tech has the ability to beat California here. Now, I know they're down this 61-59 game, but really, at the end of the day, it's not that many baskets that they need to sink to tie this one back up. So right now, Georgia Tech up plus 116. And that original number, Scott, I'm actually shocked at how high we've gone in this game because this closed right around 144, 144.5. Between them, I did like it to the over. It wasn't something I was able to get my bet in on, though. And it's all the way up to 159.5 at minus 118 to the over. I wouldn't be taking it to the under, that is for sure. But definitely this was one that I stayed off of, but thought it could go in that direction. So give me Georgia Tech right now to come back and get the win. I'm guessing this score that I'm seeing 61-59 isn't a true representation because they're wanting us to lay minus 132 right now on FanDuel for Georgia Tech. So I'm pretty sure they've tied this one back up. They were, a 3.5 point favorite coming in, Scott?
Yeah. So, you always got to be a little leery. If you think the line is a little wacky, and more times than not, it is because the score is not indicative of what they're showing of what reality is there. So, got a couple of games here, Joe, starting top of the hour. Let's throw these out there, get some initial thoughts. 14-11 North Carolina at 11-14 Syracuse. Boy, you talk about two absolute blue bloods of college basketball struggling this year mightily. Syracuse 2-5 their last 7. North Carolina 2-5 its last 7, including 4 straight road losses. They can't buy a win on the road where they are today. In fact, against the spread, they're 0-7-1 against the spread their last 8 road games. North Carolina overall, 4th worst spread team in all of college basketball, as they are 7-17-1 against the spread. Syracuse, not great, but 12-12-1 against the spread. They are 6-0 against the spread after a loss, in which they're coming, they lost their last game at Miami, a game in which I had them, actually. So, North Carolina, Syracuse, any initial thoughts on that contest?
It's really hard to lay all these points with North Carolina with how they've been playing as of late. They have lost 5 of their last 7 games. And you look at Syracuse, and I know they don't have that depth offensively, but if JJ Starling can come out here and be able to put his points up on the board, I think here at home in this game, they have every opportunity of covering the spread. So I'm going to take Syracuse plus the points, Scott. I do think if they're able to cover, we do see it being a higher scoring game. Syracuse will need to hit those baskets. They can't come out and struggle and allow the North Carolina to be able to win the rebound battle out there, because then we will see North Carolina pull away. But I think Syracuse can do enough. So I'll grab them plus the 8.5. I will take it over 154.5. They have to hit those shots, which sometimes is easier said than done with Syracuse.
Yeah, you're right about North Carolina. I mean, they really have no business being an 8.5-point road favorite over. Heck, they don't have any business being an 8.5-point home favorite, let alone road favorite over anybody. I'm surprised that number is that big, considering all the numbers we just gave you about they had no success this season on the road. They're just not that good for whatever reason. Not that they're great at home either, but especially on the road. We got Wake Forest at SMU. Wake Forest getting 7.5, over under 145.5. SMU's won 8 of 9, including 5 in a row. They're playing great basketball. They're 19-5. Wake Forest 18-7. Not a bad ACC matchup here. I gave you the numbers with Cameron Hildreth, right, at Wake Forest. He's been on fire, 20+ in 4 straight games. SMU 13-11 against the spread. 14-10 over Wake Forest, a strong under team at 16-9. I like Wake Forest in the game, Joe. I think, maybe SMU wins, but the 7.5, that's a big number to be laying against an 18-win Wake Forest team. So I'll take the 7.5, thinking they can keep it close.
Okay, we're going to be divided on this one because I am rolling with SMU laying the points. But can we agree that this one should go over that total of 145.5?
Yes.
So I'm looking for the points to come, right? So we agree?
Yes.
Okay,
I definitely like the points.
Yeah, because I think Wake Forest, they're really solid at getting the 2-pointers on the board, but I think they're going to be forced to take more threes in this one, because you look here at SMU, they're so strong in the paint defensively, and I do think we're going to have to see Wake Forest be able to get those threes on the board, which will push us to the over in this one. So I'm on SMU laying the 7.5, but what I like more is that over 145.5. I think higher scoring game here in this one.
All right. Again, we don't have props here in New York, but if you do have props where you're playing, how about SMU guard Boopie? Is that how you pronounce it? Boopie? Boopie Miller? I guess. Averages 13 points a game. So what? He transferred from Wake Forest last year. He's now on SMU. So he's 4th in the ACC in assists. 5.7 a game, Joe. If you can get him with assists or points, not a bad little hunch play, because he might not do it, but he wants to play really well against his former team, right? So if you get any Miller props, go the over. All right, in-game live.
Slow play drum beat grows louder and louder every week, to the point now that they're making overt references to it on the broadcast.
There's plenty of other guys that have to get faster. Tom definitely is more deliberate in his conversations, always has been since he's been on tour. I just think about Joe Scavern, when those two started working together, how their conversations always seem to just keep on going and going.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
At some point, these 80s are to learn, we don't need to hire ex-NBA guys. I need guys with college experience, who's gone out and recruited, who knows how to develop talent. NBA guys with no college experience don't work in college basketball. I understand they run NBA-style offenses, but it doesn't mean they can run college programs.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
In a short format tournament like this, like the Olympics, now this is even smaller, only 4 teams, who's got the best goaltending? Over, you're talking 3 round robin games and then a knockout with 4 teams. So you're playing 5 games.
I'm not sold yet, Mike, on the USA stuff, on the merch, but I think I'm sold on the USA at least being in the final.
Only on SportsGrid.
20-34. They have 14 games below 500. Any given night, you have no idea who is going to play for Philadelphia. Embiid has missed so many more games than he has actually played this year.
I will not bet on the Ravens to win the Super Bowl. I will not bet on the Ravens to win the Super Bowl. I will not bet on the Ravens because for the last 4 years now, do it every year, and I want to hit myself in the head with a bat.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in Game Live, Game Day here on the Grid. Finishing up hour number 2, another 15 more minutes, but don't go anywhere. We're here for another 2 after that, so plenty of stuff to get to over the next 2 hours and 15 minutes or so. Running down some of the 6 o'clock games, Eastern time anyway, that are going to tip off here, Joe. Next one up on the plate, Villanova and Providence. Pretty good matchup here, Big East matchup. Villanova playing much, much better of late. They're going for their 4th straight win. Providence has really struggled. Boy, they've just been decimated by injuries. They lost Corey Floyd Jr., another guy, to a concussion. He got into a car accident this past week. He's out. Abdur Rahim is out. Bryce Hopkins is out. They're the walking wounded, so they're in a lot of trouble. They've lost 4 in a row. They haven't covered any of the games. They lost all 4 of those by double digits. They're only 11-8 at home as they are tonight. Their last 19 anyway. 7-0 over after a loss, in which they're coming after a loss, and 14-9-2 over is Providence. 16-8-1 over is Villanova. So I like Villanova, which we'll get to in our SGP, and I think we're going to get some points tonight.
Yeah, I agree with you. You look at Villanova here. I think this team will be able to put the points up on the board because Providence, their defense, especially over these last 5 games, has been absolutely struggling out there on the hardwood. The defense has been allowing over those last 5, 77.6 points per game on average. And you look at Villanova, they have been able to dominate teams with a losing record. So I think they come out nice and strong in this game and can cover the spread of 2.5 on the road. I think it's probably light, Scott, -120 for them here. They have the better defense as well. So stronger team overall. I'll sign up for Villanova laying the 2.5.
All right. How about LSU 12-12 at 16-8 Oklahoma? LSU 11-13 against the spread, 13-11 under. Nothing crazy there. Same thing with Oklahoma, 11-13, oddly enough, against the spread, 13-11 over. So they're pretty even there. They are over 5-0 their last 5 as favorites. LSU's been snake bitten. They've had a couple of close games this year, but ultimately they're just finding it hard to get any victories. They're getting 7.5, pretty decent number, over under 149.5. Not necessarily in love with this game. If I had to, I'd say Oklahoma. It's one of those where I kind of hope LSU jumps out to a 10-4 lead and drop that 7.5 down to like 3.5, maybe 4.5. I'd be more comfortable versus the 7.5.
Oh, I completely hear you there. Like I looked at this earlier today and we were seeing 8.5. And at 8.5, I wanted to grab LSU. Now seeing a 7.5, I'm like, okay, is that getting to the point where Oklahoma can win this by 8 points? It's a hard one, Scott. I do think it's probably the best bet to look at this one live and just see, because I don't know. I don't trust LSU enough plus the points. So it is Oklahoma. I think they win this. They win it by like 5, 6, 7, 8. Can they win this by double digits? They absolutely could with how LSU's been playing. So I lean to laying all those points with Oklahoma. But I'm like you. I just don't love this game.
Yeah. 7 minutes left in at USC. Minnesota now leads 53-52. It's down to basically pick 'em. USC laying 1.5. I told you, I thought this just had classic little letdown. Not that, they had a monster win last time out for USC, but just, I don't know, 7.5. Two mediocre teams. USC stinks. Who are they to be laying 7.5 against anybody? Minnesota's capable. They got some wins this year. I know they beat Oregon. I think they beat Michigan as well. So I was expecting a monster effort out of them, and that's what we got so far. And now it is pick 'em, 55-52 Minnesota. This is one of my overtime games, so I'm happy they've come back. I don't want to open up too big of a lead. We need a nice little 1 or 2 possession game the rest of the way, and maybe have our fortunes hit and have this game go to overtime. So 136.5. I still think we're going to get some points. Do like that. Georgia Tech has tied up Cal 71 all. And, the main game, Joe, it's turning into a rout here. Auburn 55-43 over Alabama. Still plenty of time left, over 14 minutes. But, man, Crimson Tide not playing well today at all. Hasn't changed much in the second half, like we looked at some of those numbers from the first half.
Yeah, I was going to say, what is Bama doing out there? Is it just way too much pressure playing Auburn in this matchup? Because, again, they're not sinking those baskets. We've seen Auburn continuously pull away in this game and Bama just not be able to get back in it. So right now, even at plus 560, with what we've seen out of this game, even though I thought Bama was a great price at plus 152, plus 158 earlier, I just can't buy in on this team at the moment, Scott. They're missing way too many open looks out there on the court. And now it's plus 630 for Alabama. So anyone sitting there with Auburn has to feel a little confident. But like we've seen in so many of these games are not over till the very end. So if you did have faith in Alabama, I don't blame you. At plus 900 now, Scott, in a 59-45 game for them to come back. I'm counting on them to make a little bit of a run here. We just saw them sink a basket because I need that over 172.5, 173.5, 174.5. I can't remember how high I took it, Scott. We know this one got up to 176.5. I wish at that point I would have taken it to the under, because 165.5 is your live number right now. I expected a way better performance shooting wise out of Alabama here. So I'm shocked.
Yeah. 2 of 18. 2 of 19 now. They just missed another 3. 2 of 19. I mean, that's where overs at 170s and change go to die, right? I mean, just 1 of 3, 0 of 1, 0 of 1, 0 of 2, 0 of 6, 0 1, 0 1, 0 1, and 1 of 3. 2 of 19. 10% is what they're shooting from 3.
Wow.
I mean, they're down 15 now. You're not going to beat anybody shooting like that, right? I mean, and crazy as it sounds, the over still has a halfway decent shot, or at least a shot anyway. Let's put it that way. You're at 105 points. You got 13 minutes left, but it's, at that point where it's a 15-point margin. Is Auburn going to be playing that great in-your-face defense? I wouldn't think so. If we can get it just to that 155 area with a couple minutes left, then you get some cheap buckets. It's not out of the question. I will say it's not likely, but it certainly is not impossible. It really isn't. But they got to start hitting some shots. I mean, that's just horrible. Getting 11.5, 9-1. You said it on the money line.
It's awful.
And the over 165. Yeah. Man,
Auburn laying 11.5. Would you lay it?
Down 14. I'd consider it.
slow play drumbeat grows louder and louder every week, to the point now that they're making overt references to it on the broadcast.
So there's plenty of other guys that have to get faster. Tom definitely is more deliberate in his conversations, always has been since he's been on tour. I just think about Joe Scover and when those two started working together, how their conversations always seem to just keep on going and going.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
At some point, these 80s are to learn we don't need to hire ex-NBA guys. I need guys with college experience who's gone out and recruited, who know how to develop talent. NBA guys with no college experience don't work in college basketball. I understand they run NBA-style offenses, but it doesn't mean they can run college programs.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
In a short format tournament like this, like the Olympics, now this is even smaller, only 4 teams, who's got the best goaltending? Over, you're talking 3 round robin games and then a knockout with 4 teams. So you're playing 5 games.
I'm not sold yet, Mike, on the USA stuff, on the merch, but I think I'm sold on the USA at least being in the final.
Only on SportsGrid.
20-34. They are 14 games below 500. Any given night, you have no idea who is going to play for Philadelphia. Embiid has missed so many more games than he has actually played this year.
I will not bet on the Ravens to win the Super Bowl. I will not bet on the Ravens to win the Super Bowl. I will not bet on the Ravens because for the last 4 years now, I do it every year, and I want to hit myself in the head with a bat.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back. In-game live game day here on the grid. Scott and Joe closing out hour number 2 with our favorite little segment, SGP, Same Game Parlay Time. All right, Joe, I'll go first here. I'm going to use the Villanova-Providence game, and I do like Villanova. They're laying 2.5. I'm going to bump that up, and I'm going to lay 6.5. Thought about going a little bit higher, but they're giving us 146, laying 6.5. That kind of pushes it, so I'll settle on that. Give me Villanova, adjusted line, laying 6.5 against Providence. Going to go over 67.5 first half points, and if I'm going to do that, I might as well go over for the game. 141.5 Villanova Providence. I do think we're going to get a high-scoring game. As we mentioned earlier, both are pretty good over teams, so why not? And then we're going to use, we don't have player props here in New York, so let's go Villanova to score 20 points first at minus 140, and then Villanova to score 50 points first at minus 160. I'm basically asking for a start to finish, Villanova win. I do think Providence is going to make some runs here and there, but I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. It's a big game for Nova. They've won 3 in a row. They're playing great. Providence is not. Villanova 16-8-1 over this season. Providence 14-9-2 over this season. So I think we're going to get some points despite the injuries, especially with Providence players being out like they are. I'm not worried about Villanova. I'm worried about Providence scoring some points, but I think we get enough to push this over the 141.5 and the 67.5 first half. So add it all up, and it's a nice 7-1 plus 707 parlay. What do you got?
Oh, that's a beautiful parlay. Almost double what I've got out here for you guys. I'm looking at the matchup between Mississippi State and Ole Miss, and I've got a 4-legger here. It's coming in at actually it's just a 3-legger. It's coming in at plus 387. So I'm looking at this game. These teams matched up just in January. We did see Mississippi State win that game in overtime. It was a tight battle out there. It was 84-81. Ole Miss has a team total, and they're stronger at home, able to put up more points on the board at home. A team total of 75.5, and I definitely think they should be able to hit on it with this matchup here. So that will be the first leg of my parlay. And then I'm looking at who I think is able to get those points on the board for Ole Miss. Looking at Sean Padula here to come out and go over his points of 15.5 at minus 114 will be the second leg. He's really strong at getting those points up on the board. He scored 14.6 on average points of this season, and he's really strong at getting those assists as well. But I'll take his points in this one. And then to just bump up this parlay, when we look at Mississippi State, the player that's really got to come out strong for Mississippi State to be able to keep this tight is Josh Hubbard here. He's been able to put those points on the board. He's averaging 17.6 points per game, so he's the top scorer out there for this team. And I do think his number of 16.5 is just a little light. I'm expecting very few turnovers here from Ole Miss, but I do think they'll get their points on the board. Mississippi State will have to answer back with Josh Hubbard. So Josh Hubbard over 16.5 points for Mississippi State. Ole Miss will look at Sean Padula here over 15.5 points. And then Ole Miss, their team total over 75.5. Scott, that's at plus 387.
All right, not bad. You're right. Hubbard averages over 17.5 points a game, so you get a little bit of a discount. That's actually not too bad. I like Ole Miss. I think they're going to win, but I do think they're going to go over their team total as well. Why the team total versus having them win?
Oh, because, on the money line, I wasn't that comfortable laying that kind of juice and laying that spread of 4.5, Scott. I do think this could be a 3-point game here. So I want to take out of the equation that maybe they win this by 3. I think they either win it by 3 or they win it by 5. So that spread is dead on the money. I think either way, they go over the 75.5 points in this matchup. So win or lose, I really do see them getting those points on the board.
Okay. No problem. I do like it. Almost 4-1 on a 3-leg parlay. So there you go. You got Joe's SGP. You got my SGP. Both games start top of the hour, so you got plenty of time to get those in. Couple of updates here. Alabama made a little bit of a run. They made a couple of dunks, got the fans back involved, but kind of reminds me of the Tennessee game against Auburn, where Tennessee just couldn't miss. That's kind of how this one is. Every single time Bama makes a little bit of a run, Auburn just flexes its muscles. So it's back up to 13, 63-50. We're getting some points, though. As I told you, you still over 11 minutes left. The over 170, in changes is not out of the question for sure. And Dookie lead by 30+.
Slow play drumbeat grows louder and louder every week to the point now that they're making overt references to it on the broadcast.
So there's plenty of other guys that have